Hello and welcome to the Emmy Awards. I'm your host, Emmy Cardinale, and this is my podcast where I talk about what I've been watching or rewatching once a week. If this is the first episode of mine that you stumble upon and you enjoy it, please feel free to follow me wherever you listen to podcasts so you get notified when I upload a new episode. If you're listening to this on YouTube, whenever that goes up on YouTube, subscribe on there. I'm so bad at uploading to YouTube, but I'm going to try to catch up. The issue too is that the RSS feed, which is what I upload my podcast to, that then distributes to places, including YouTube. Episodes longer than 2 hours, they don't transfer directly. So my last episode 101, the Sex Lives of a College Girl Season 3 Deep Dive, that was 2 hours and 30 minutes. So that's not going to be on YouTube. So anyways, maybe if I can manually do it, but I have a really old laptop. Sorry. Anyways, this episode is going to be a recap of the Traitors Season 3 episodes 7 and 8. And then I'm going to share my initial thoughts on Yellowjackets Season 3 episodes 1 and 2. I'm not going to do a traditional recap where I go scene by scene sharing my thoughts of Yellowjackets, just because I do intend to do that for the season as a whole when it's over in a deep dive format, because I really enjoy those for shows like Yellowjackets, because I feel like I can pick up on imagery, hints, and payoffs in ways that I won't while it's airing. But I do want to talk about it while it's airing to have my thoughts as it's going in real time. So then at the end, I want to track how I interpret the season as it's airing, any correct predictions, any really big surprises. I don't want to just save it all to the end, so I will be talking about Yellowjackets every week, but I just kind of have a mishmash of notes of my thoughts on the episode instead of recap style where I'm this happens and this happens and this happens. I'll be doing that in my deep dive just because I did that for seasons 1 and 2, so I want to keep the consistency and do a deep dive for season 3, but I also want to share my thoughts in real time. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll keep recapping the Traitors until it's over. I am recording this Thursday, early afternoon. I am going to try to edit and upload it before the day's over. By the time this uploads, a new episode of the Traitors will probably be out. So that is what it is. But hopefully it'll be out before the new Yellowjackets is out at midnight. So that is my goal. And then for the next episode of the Traitors and Yellowjackets, I am going to try to record tomorrow, Friday, or Saturday, and then get it out by the end of the weekend. And that'll be my schedule going forward, because the episodes of the Traitors comes out Thursdays, and then Yellowjackets comes out Thursday too. I'm going to recap the Traitors and debrief about Yellowjackets, and my plan is to record on Fridays and Saturdays to get the episodes out Sundays in a much more the recaps take me longer because I pause the show a lot. I write detailed scene by scene notes. That takes me a while, so I'm not going to be doing that for Yellowjackets, just so I can, I think, dive a bit into my predictions and stuff in a way that I think will be really fun. But anyways, so for the Traitors, I will continue to recap, and then Yellowjackets, I'm just going to share my thoughts once a week. And then if I still have more to talk about after I talk about the Yellowjackets episodes, I'll just talk about whatever else I've been watching. But that's my plan. I will be doing a deep dive, more detailed recap scene by scene stuff as once the season's over, just so I can share all of my thoughts on the season as a whole then. But I'm going to be sharing my thoughts as the season goes on as well. If that's annoying to you, that's fine. Timestamps are in the description, so you can only listen to Yellowjacket or you can only listen to the Traitors, whatever you prefer. It's a choose your own adventure here at the Emmy Awards. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really, really going to try to get this episode out before the new Traitors episode 9 goes live, but if not, it's fine. Per circle, it'll even be out before Yellowjackets. That I feel better about. But anyways, episode 7 of the Traitors was called Till Death Us Do Part. We pick up in the turret. It was tense in the turret in episode 6. I mean, when isn't it tense in the turret? But we pick up in the turret, and Rob doesn't want to say who in his group has a shield because it's rough in the turret right now. Rob wants to go for Derek. Danielle says no. Derek told me he doesn't have a shield, so that would look suspicious on me. Rob makes a good point where he's he doesn't know you're a traitor. That wouldn't, if he had a shield, that wouldn't look Maybe also because I don't know if it's a new thing, but I don't think last season they had those every week. They release a video of the banished and murdered like house guests, not house guests, contestants figuring out, well, faithfuls, I guess, because all the traitors know everything. But the faithful who have been banished or murdered finding out who the traitors are. So, like, they're going to find out who you are anyway. But I guess they have no way of knowing that that's something that they're going to do, because I don't believe they released those video formats last year. So it's, like, not, like, an established thing that they would know. You always find out. But I feel like season 4, they'll be like, oh, I'll find out regardless. But anyways, like, he's going to find out you're a traitor anyway. But I guess she would have, like, wanted to tell him. Anyways, Sam is also an option. Dylan is an option. Sierra is an option. They're kind of, like, really not agreeing on any one person. And Rob asks in a confessional what happens if the traitors can't agree. And that's, like, where the turret scene ends. So that's a bit of a cliffhanger. Chrishell at breakfast, everybody comes in at breakfast. One funny thing, Chrishell at breakfast says that they'd know if she was a traitor because Tom would be the first dead. Like, they talk about who they think might be murdered, and somebody mentions Tom, and she's like, oh, you can only hope. She was like, you'd know if I was in the turret because he would be the first gone, which was funny. Rob and Dylan walk in, which means Derek is gone. We see in the turret Danielle say that if she gives them Derek, can they start over? And so she gives them Derek. It was sad. She was, like, genuinely very sad about it. Derek, though, when he comes in and he gets his, like, death notice, he's not particularly sad. He, like, knew it was coming. He, like, fully knew it was coming. He, like, was fine with it. I think he knew that, like, he'd be a sacrificial lamb, and he planted seeds that did bloom into codified change. That's a Sex Lives of College Girls reference if you don't watch that show and you haven't listened to my recap. Anyways, but, like, he did plant seeds. Let me keep going. Danielle is really sad and feeling guilty. Rob says to Dylan, they're trying to frame me. Like, verbatim, Derek told Dylan, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to die. And Boston Rob is going to say, they're trying to frame me. And then the first thing we see is Boston Rob say to Dylan, they're trying to frame me. I was gagged. I was like, Derek has him. He laid the nail in the coffin, and Rob himself was the one who hammered it in. Sandoval, of all people, is starting to be suspicious of Rob. He's like, at this point, it's not adding up. All these people who have gone after Boston Rob are dying. Boston Rob is a traitor. For the challenge, they have to partner up. Alan reveals at the breakfast table. Rob repeats to the table that he was framed, and Dylan says he has something to share with him. Derek left him a name. Then before the challenge, we see the girls outside talking about Danielle being suspicious with her overacting. They're very much planting seeds in the edit, which I'm not saying it's, like, fake, but I do think it's an edited show, so they pick. I think all of these things matter in the edited show. I think the constant blunders on Danielle's part that they're highlighting, I do think if she is banished if Danielle doesn't win and make it to the end, I do think that these were trying to point us in that direction of, like, people were suspicious of her, and that's why, like, they have to build some kind of narrative of, like, she is suspicious, so then when she gets banished, it doesn't come out of nowhere. So I think that's what they're doing. I think that this means she doesn't make it to the end. But anyways, let me keep going. Dylan tells Rob about the conversation he had with Derek, and he's like, he left me your name. Obviously, I'm not going to mention that, but, like, he left me Brittany's. So Dylan is now honed in on Brittany. And this really annoyed me because it's like, look, Dylan, think of things logically. The reason he left you Brittany's name is because Brittany was trying to persuade you not to vote for Rob. Why would that be suspicious if Rob wasn't a traitor? Like, that's the whole argument. That's the whole reason. Brittany was suspicious to Derek because she was protecting Rob. Also because she was quiet. But, like, that the main evidence that she had was this move of hers. The weird closeness to Rob. The trying to protect Rob. Rob is at the core there. Focus on Rob. Danielle and Brittany have decided to partner up for the challenge. Danielle in confessional says that she was skeptical of Brittany coming in, but now she's all she has. They've kind of, if one good thing comes out of this, I mean, I don't know, because maybe they turn on each other, but if one good thing comes of this, at least Danielle and Brittany mended their reindeer game beef Sandoval, Dylan, and Rob are in a room, and Dylan says that Derek left him with Brittany's name. And Sandoval fully thinks Rob is a traitor and says that to his face. He's like, but Rob, like, things aren't looking good for you. In a really funny way. The thing is, I really feel like I was not meant to know about Sandoval's personal life. Like, he was just meant to be a funny person on a competitive show. Like, why do I have to know about the interworkings of this man's personal life? I don't want to have to know that he's a cheater, okay? Anyways, I will say, okay, Tom Sandoval, don't know if I'd want him in my life, but he makes great TV. He's always made great TV. I will admit. Actually, season 11 wasn't the best TV, but I think that was like, I don't know. Not that I don't blame him, because obviously he created the environment in that he cheated on Ariana and then like wouldn't like leave the house and like wouldn't sell the house. Like, obviously he was a member of that conflict. But I do somewhat blame production for not like pivoting and finding a way for the season to move on without Ariana and Tom interacting with each other. Like, that wasn't fully on Tom. Like, there are producers and they keep pushing that narrative for like truly no reason. Whatever. But I will say that Tom Sandoval makes great television. Like, he's very entertaining. I don't know if he's a good person or not, but he makes good TV. Jax Taylor. My sister once said that Tom Sandoval is what Jax Taylor thinks he is, like, bad person but makes good TV. I agree. Jax Taylor doesn't make good TV. Maybe he did when he was like 20 and it was like, but like at this point, like, there reached a point in Jax Taylor's TV career where it was just sinister and it's like unsettling and like not entertaining. It's just gross to watch. Like, the only entertainment value he has is pure like villainy. Like, he is somebody you watch to like hate and be like disgusted by. Maybe that's a bit strong. My sister didn't say that. This is me. She's the Tom Sandoval thing is what she said. But like, I really don't. That's it. That's my opinion. Sandoval is at least a little bit entertaining. Jax Taylor is like just so. Anyways, if you don't watch Vanderpump Rules, none of that means anything to you. The challenge is like wedding themed. They're getting married, and in their couples, they're competing against each other, and it's like a random draw to decide which couples compete against each other. They have to hold each other's hands, and the couple that lasts for 8 minutes, the couple that lets go first loses. Whoever holds on the longest wins, and also wins the money if you make it to the 8-minute mark. Or if you make it to the 8-minute mark, you get a shield, but whoever holds on the longest. I'm sorry. It felt very confusing because, like, spoiler, all the couples except, like all the competitors except one group held on the entire time. So then it became somewhat of a, like, random draw. It wasn't a random draw. They had to do, like, a tiebreaker. But it was like, I don't know. It felt like they expected more people to give up faster. Like, everybody went to the 8-minute mark except Chrishell and Dolores. Chrishell, like, pulled away, like, within seconds as soon as she saw the bugs because they hold each other's hands and then they, like, pile bugs onto each other. I will say that, like, putting the bugs on the hands wasn't the worst part. It's like, then, like, cockroaches started raining on them, or like just maggots like falling on their heads. That would bother me more than like having something on my hand. Then they put a snake on them as well. The snake wouldn't bother me. I think snakes are cute. The bugs would just, like, for nothing else except like the sensation, all the bugs on me, I think I would just like I would get like the heebie-jeebies. Anyways, the majority of them like basically held on for nothing. I mean, I guess they banked the money, but like they didn't get the shields. I would have sued. Anyways, then they do the tiebreaker and it's like in a pile of bugs. You have to find like a ring. Brittany and Danielle get it. They find the ring first. Sam and Ivar get it. Sierra and Rob got the shields automatically because they lasted the longest, and so they didn't have to do the tiebreaker. Up for murder are Dolores and Chrishell, Gabby and Carolyn, quote unquote. She's not up for, I mean, she is, but like, she's fine. Dylan and Tom. So basically it's Dolores, Chrishell, Gabby, Dylan, and Tom. And I was like, please let it be anybody but Gabby. I jokingly said that if I was a traitor, I would kill Chrishell just because she didn't have to get any bugs on her. And like, okay, Dolores didn't either, but like Chrishell is the reason that they tapped out. Sandoval at this point is certain that Rob is a traitor. Very much. He's going very hard for Rob. Rob, however, is pushing the Brittany narrative, and Sierra is very much on Rob's side, which will not serve her well in the long term. But, you know, I will say Rob's dynamic in the challenge, trying to comfort Sierra and distract her when the bugs were coming, was very endearing. I really liked that. I knew nothing of Boston Rob before. Funny thing, the only thing I ever knew about Boston Rob is in Big Brother 25. At some point, Corey Werdenberger was trying to explain Rob has a podcast to Riley, and Riley goes, Boston Rob? Obviously, it's not Boston Rob who runs Rob has a podcast, but like that's genuinely the only time I had heard Boston Rob's name. And so I know nothing of Boston Rob. I've never watched Survivor. He pissed me off at the beginning of the Traitors season. Like, I was rooting against him, not gonna lie. He was pissing me off. But this was an endearing moment where I was like, aw. I also found out that I'm a sucker for, like, showmances. I can't lie. I do love. And I found out that he met his wife on Survivor. I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. And apparently he, like, lost to his wife. That's so romantic. Anyways, that's all. I really do not know much of Boston Rob. But that was very endearing, and I understand why Sierra is, like, on his side, because I would believe him too. Rob tells Carolyn to go with Brittany, and she says she's like, really? But she doesn't really push back much. But she's very much, like, skeptical of the going for Brittany. Brittany is picking up on the vibes that they're, like, not really disclosing who is suspicious to them right now. So she's like, she realizes she's in danger because of how awkward they're all acting around her. Danielle is hesitant about going with Rob and voting Brittany out because he's like, we're going for Brittany. And she's just kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, she just gave them Derek and now he wants to go for Brittany. And she's just not sure she wants to do that. At the round table, Dylan starts and says exactly what Derek said, which I was glad that he didn't, like, omit the Boston Rob part. He does kind of, like, brush over it a little bit. He's like, he gave me 2 names. He said, I'm going to be murdered. And, like, the 2 names he gave me were Boston Rob and Brittany. Boston Rob, I'd already heard his reasoning. So I asked about Brittany, and he explained about the voting thing that I've already explained. And, again, that voting thing, the reason it was suspicious was because she was protecting Rob. Let's not lose sight of the root of this issue, which is that Boston Rob is a traitor, right? Let's not lose sight of what's important, okay? Dylan, sweet Aquarius Dylan. Sierra defends Rob. Sandoval emphasizes the Bob the drag queen, like a traitor, goddess a traitor thing. And Dolores is like, I credit Dylan for Bob the drag queen, not Rob. And they're kind of like, yeah, but like Rob really pushed. And it's true because Dylan was saying Bob the drag queen before like Rob did, but Rob was the one who gave that theory legs. Nobody believed Dylan. It was Boston Rob's convincing that got Bob the drag queen out. Rob's defense, I will say, it was convincing, but it felt very, and I think I also, like, you have the benefit of the doubt as a viewer where you can watch it, like, back to back, and, like, it's different than, like, experiencing something and then, like, living it the next day with, like, no reference point. Like, I can go back and watch the West scene. I've, like, rewatched each episode a few times to take the notes and to cover it on the podcast and everything, and I've listened to other people's coverage of it, so I think, it's easier to reference it in my brain than it would be if you're just like sitting there experiencing it. But his speech felt very similar to his speech for Wes, where he was like, this is what happened and this person accused me and the only person I think would be able to handle that was you. Like, the way Boston Rob does this is he always shifts the target from him onto somebody else instead of just purely defending himself and being like, that wouldn't make sense for me, which is a good strategy. I'm not saying like it's bad, or I'm not criticizing literally at all, because I do think it works. You have to give them somebody else so they get off of you. That's totally valid in my opinion. I'm not criticizing that within itself. It's just kind of feels very routine when you do it 2 nights in a row and I'm watching the episodes back to back, you know what I mean? That's where I'm coming from, but like it was convincing. But he turns it back against Brittany, and it's like, the issue for me is that Rob is arguing that they're trying to frame him, but like, what makes more sense? That a traitor would kill multiple people to frame one person for one banishment, or that a traitor would kill multiple people to protect himself because he's going after him? Like, it makes way more sense that all these people are dying because Boston Rob doesn't want people going after him, then it makes sense that all of these people are dying because some traitor is trying to frame Boston Rob for the one banishment, because that only buys them 1 week. Boston Rob killing all the people who are going after him saves him longer. Like, it makes more sense. Like, the obvious thing, it makes more sense that a traitor would kill the people who are coming after him more than a traitor would kill all of these people just to frame Boston Rob. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. And also, like, I think Brittany defends herself pretty well. She's like, we're going to be doing this again if you vote me out. Like, this is a misfire. And it's true. It's like, at some point, like, just banish Rob to sea then. Banish Rob to sea. If they are trying to frame him and people keep dying because they're going after Boston Rob, then banish Boston Rob anyway. You lose nothing by banishing Boston Rob. I mean, I guess you lose a faithful if then there are more traitors and whatever. But, like, if you end the conversation, the framing of Boston Rob ends one way or another. If he's guilty, if he's innocent, it makes more sense that he would, like, keep killing people who are going after him than it would make sense. You know what I mean? Which is why I think if I was Boston Rob, I would have let go a little bit and not. I think it's hard too, though, because he is like a big character and he's going to be a target regardless. So maybe he just wants to kill all the people who are going after him. But it's like, I would be too worried about people being like, oh, you're killing all the people going after you, that I would want to back off a little bit. But, like, I guess you can't do that. The votes in order: Tom votes for Rob, Chrishell votes for Tom. It's a throwaway vote, which was funny because I did say in my last Traitors recap that if you're going to do a throwaway vote, it should be for Tom Sandoval. And then Chrishell heard me in the space-time continuum, and she said, I'm going to do a throwaway vote for Tom. The reason I said that, too, is because the episode 6, Dylan did a throwaway vote to Gabby, and I was like, if you're going to do a throwaway vote, at least vote for Tom Sandoval. And then Chrishell, she heard me. Brittany votes for Rob, Sierra votes for Brittany, Dylan votes for Gabby, another throwaway vote, and once again to Gabby. So annoying of Dylan. Carolyn votes for Rob, Sam votes for Rob, Ivor votes for Rob, Rob votes for Brittany, Daniel votes for Rob, and that is the final vote that Rob needed, so Rob has been banished. But then the final 2 votes, Dolores votes for Tom, a throwaway vote, loved, and then Gabby votes for Rob. Rob reveals he's a traitor. In his exit, he says he understands why Carolyn was wary of him, but he would have gone to the end with her. She had no reason to doubt him. He thinks Danielle is a bad traitor and a bad player. The traitors, we find out from Alan, will commit their murder face to face. Dylan is feeling vulnerable because he trusted Rob. He's, like, happy that they got a traitor out, but he's also like, that was somebody who was in my corner. Sandoval's happy because he feels like people are finally taking him seriously. There's still tension in the turret. They go through the list of the 5 people available, and they say there's good reasons for any one of them. The short list of people, the 5, they dress up all fancy, and it's like a cliffhanger on who's going to die. The episode ends with, like, all of them turning to see somebody, and it's like, who will see the traitors? Episode 8 is called A Bitch is Lying. We find out that if they see Alan, they're safe. If they don't, that means the traitor's there and they're murdered. We all see them turn, but we don't see who sees Alan. Then it's breakfast. Danielle is feeling good about the murder, and because they got Rob out, she's like, for purely game reasons, I'm happy about the murder. They talk about Rob at the breakfast table, and Sam says that the traitors are not as smart as they think they are. Gabby comes in and tells them what things looked like. Sandoval's in next. He thought he'd be the last. Like, he for sure knows that those who come in last are the ones who are, like, up in the air. Like, it's always, like, between 2 people, and the last 2 people are, like, the last person is one of the people who was up in the air. He definitely thought he was going to be one of the people who was going to be up in the air, and he wasn't. He was the second one in. Sandoval mentions Alan's shoes, and Sam is like, whoever can describe what Alan is wearing is actually there. But if there's a traitor, they won't be able to because they won't have seen Alan. Carolyn is next, and they ask her what things looked like. Sierra then asks what Alan was wearing, and she kind of stumbles. Sandoval then starts to explain what Alan was wearing, and Sam is like, no, don't say. But it kind of saves Carolyn because then they don't kind of then press her anymore on what Alan was wearing. Gabby jokes that Carolyn is, like, on pass-fail. It's between Chrishell and Dylan. Then we see the church. Alan is walking up. The traitors are walking up. And then we see Dylan turn and see Alan, so he's safe. Chrishell turns. She asks why they chose her. She was too faithful. She was never going to be banished. It was her time. I joked that I would have killed Chrishell just because she didn't have to deal with all the bugs on her. But anyways. R.I.P. Chrishell. Gabby is the last Bambi standing. LBS. That sounds like LDS. She gets in a coffin. She says in confessionals that she wasn't surprised about Danielle, but she was shocked about Carolyn. Sandoval says Chrishell never gave her opinion. At breakfast, Sandoval says Chrishell never gave her opinion until the vote was clearly going a certain way, and that bothers him. Somebody's like, that's your personal vendetta. I couldn't figure out who said that. And he says it's not. It just pisses him off. Says that she was coasting to the end. And Sierra says that you can say the same about Brittany. And then Sandoval's like, Brittany actually puts herself out there more. As he's leaving, after Alan comes in, announces, like, does his little speech, throws the picture as he always does when somebody gets murdered. And as he's leaving, he's like, be a doll, do it quickly. And everyone's like, doll, doll. And then Sandoval's like, do it quickly. Sam at some point is like, the clue was doll, Sandoval. He's so funny. He's so funny. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm not gonna, like, forgive him, and I'm not gonna be like a Tom Sandoval Sandoval, but he's funny. He's funny on this show. What can I say? Danielle wants to put things behind her and run the castle with Carolyn. It's one day at a time for Carolyn, though. She's like, she betrayed me. I've been cheated on. It's one day at a time. So it's still tense between the traitors, which, you know, I have to say, like, the thing is, I know not everything is Boston Rob's fault, but he, like, established the language of betrayal in the turret. And then after that, Danielle was like, I gotta get Rob out. But in order to get Rob out, I have to get Carolyn out, which was a stupid move. It was a stupid move. But it was, like, still kind of Boston Rob's fault. He didn't have to get Bob the drag queen out the way he did. Sandoval is lost. He asks the statue of a stag for advice in a very funny way. In a group, he brings up the Carolyn-Danielle thing, and Carolyn explains that Danielle threw her name out to Brittany. She says in confessionals, Carolyn does, that she doesn't want to throw Danielle under the bus, but if it's brought up, she's not going to breeze past it because that would look suspicious. So she explains why she was honest. Sam brings up the coffin theory again, which was so stupid, but Sierra did not help herself. I will say, as stupid as the coffin theory is, I think if it had been, the traitors were smart to put Sierra in there unknowingly. I don't think they put her in there knowing that this would, but like, she did a lot of things that really built a case against her, and the coffin was like the first one. She really didn't help herself with the vote against Brittany. Like, she was the only person who voted against Brittany with Rob. Like, that does look suspicious. The Brittany-Danielle duo is suspicious to Sierra and to Gabby. Like, they're very much starting to become viewed as a dangerous duo. For the challenge, half the players will stay in the house and the others will be in the forest. Only those in the forest can get a shield. They've done these before where it's like half the team is in the house, and very often it's like you have to listen to something. Those who go into the woods, it's like a dollhouse, and their dolls, it's in nursery rhymes backwards, and they have to like decode the nursery rhymes. It's a really, really funny competition. If you haven't watched any episode of The Traitors, I do at least recommend watching that challenge because it's so funny. Tom Sandoval is really the only one who's focused on trying to sing it back. The rest are like really only looking for a shield. Sierra gets the shield, she finds it, and so she gets the shield. They magically get all of the rhymes done in the last half of the time they had. Like, for the first, they're like, half the time's gone, nothing done. And then boom, they just crank it out one after the other. Like, the time is so fake. Anyways, everyone in the woods knows that Sierra got the shield, which Danielle's in that group. Carolyn's inside. Sierra is still sure that Brittany is a traitor. Ivar tells Danielle that the plan is to go for Sierra, and Danielle in confessionals says that it's been a struggle for her and Carolyn to work together, so she is just going to go where the wind takes her today. She needs the faithful to focus on anyone else. So that's Sierra, that's good. Basically, she's going to let things play out, which is smart of her. Like, she's not going to try to get the target on anybody else. Sierra is Sam's main target. Gabby is still hesitant about Danielle and Brittany as a duo. Carolyn would prefer if Brittany got banished over Sierra. Dylan tells Danielle that he's still suspicious of Brittany because of what Derek said, and Derek was right about Rob. But Dylan's also, like, you know, a little bit suspicious of Danielle and her proximity to Brittany, and maybe he's like, I've trusted Danielle a lot, maybe I'm wrong about her. Like, that's a bit of a seed they're planting in the editing. Carolyn gives Sierra a heads up about the coffin theory coming back in. Sierra's going for Brittany, which is what Carolyn would prefer. So that's good. Carolyn and Sierra are kind of aligned right now going into the round table. Sierra thinks that the coffin theory is stupid and also points out that Jeremy died that day and he was going after Danielle, which, as much as I don't want Danielle to get out, like, this is a good rebuttal on Sierra's part to be like, if we're going back to the coffins, the person who died on coffin night was Jeremy, and the last person Jeremy was going after was Danielle. Like, that's a great rebuttal. I did appreciate that. It's between Sierra and Brittany. They're convinced, though, that a girl has to be a traitor. And this is a big thing that keeps coming up in this episode, is that there has to be a female traitor, which is true. It's brought up to Sierra that, like, there's suspicion on her, and she brings up the Jeremy thing again. Going into the round table, Dylan is suspicious of Brittany, but he's ready to shift gears if needed. Carolyn will not go to bat for Danielle if it comes to that, which is fair, I guess. Alan, in his little speech that he always gives, he said something about transforming their winter of discontent into a glorious summer. And it made me think of Yellowjackets. I can't lie. Everything makes me think of Yellowjackets. But, like, that's so true. Their winter of discontent did transform into a glorious summer. For now. Who knows what they start doing later. Anyways, I don't know when this episode's going to go out, because it might not be out the end of the day, but before episode 3 of Yellowjackets comes out. But when I'm recording this, only episodes 1 and 2 of season 3 are out. So if something happened, anyways, I don't need all those disclaimers. Sierra starts with a coffin theory, saying it's wrong. Ivar says that it wasn't just the coffin theory. A lot of little things point to her, and one of the things is that there's got to be a girl in the turret. Sandoval has a Freudian slip where he says, like, historically, girls are better cheaters. They're like, you did not just say that. He's like, I meant traitors, which he's not wrong. I think that the women statistically have a better... Okay, I haven't watched every single season, but in the US version, season 1, only one traitor won at the end, and that was Suri. Then season 2, the traitors didn't win. It was the faithful. And I do think that the female traitors outlasted the men. I do think the women outlasted the men traitors-wise in season 2. Like, the women do have a better luck being traitors. So he's not wrong in that regard. I don't know about the statistics about, like, the UK version. So I don't know. The coffin theory feels very stupid to me. I've said this before, but it's just like, why would they draw attention to themselves? Although I did see a comment where somebody said, speaking of the UK version, that's actually, like, really common in the UK version, that the traitors will do stuff like that. But to me, it feels like too obvious, because it's like they've still been talking about the coffins. Why would you want to draw attention to yourself? Like, at this point, it feels like the only reason you would put a traitor in the coffin is to be so, like, there's no way they would put a traitor in the coffin. There's no way we would think they put a traitor in the coffin, so there's got to be a traitor in the coffin. Like, it feels like a million steps removed from what would make the most sense. Like, it feels similar to, in a way of, like, it doesn't make sense to me, of, like, Boston Rob's argument was, like, they murdered all these people coming after me in order to frame me, when it would make the most sense that you're murdering all the people coming after you. It feels similar. Like, why would they put a traitor in the coffin when everybody just keeps talking about the coffin? There's obviously not a traitor in the coffin. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me. I will say, though, one interesting argument they have for that is that they keep bringing up the fact that the two traitors they know are such big personalities that they think that they would want to sway somebody and put a traitor in a coffin. That the traitors that they know they've gotten out would want to do that. And that was interesting to me, because yes and no. Bob the drag queen wanted to put Carolyn in the coffin. Boston Rob was like, that doesn't make sense. We're not putting a traitor in the coffin. So they were half right. Like, one of the traitors did want to do that. Rob was smart to be like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that? So that was funny to me, that was part of their argument. So that they're like, Sierra, we think that you could be swayed to be in the coffin. There wasn't much of, like, Sierra being suspicious besides, like, her voting with Rob and her being in the coffin at all. They're like, that is something that we think a traitor would convince you to do. Not even like you as a traitor would want to put yourself in the coffin. It was like, we think that the traitors we've gotten out would be able to convince you to go in the coffin. Anyways, Sam says they don't have much, and he thinks that they should just close that theory. And Sierra just doesn't have much to defend herself with, except that she knows she's a faithful. Brittany does point out that the 2 votes for her last roundtable were Rob and Sierra, and she defends voting for Brittany and kind of throws Brittany's name out. I will say something interesting. I feel like, and maybe this is just recent memory, but I feel like the people who, not always, but I feel like there's a pattern of, like, a lot of the times the faithful don't have a good argument for why they're faithful, except like, I know I am, because there's nothing there, where a traitor has all the information. So their defense can be like stacked with like, this person did this in order to frame somebody else, because they have the power to frame somebody else. Whereas faithful are just kind of like, look, I don't fucking know. I'm here, I'm doing the challenges, and I'm not killing anybody. Like, I don't know how to prove that I'm not, you know what I mean? It's hard it feels like the traitors, and maybe it's just the people who have been chosen to be traitors, but it feels like the people who are mainly building cases. I mean, Derek built a really strong case, but his name wasn't up in the air. It feels like when people's names get thrown out there and they don't know how to defend themselves, it feels like those people tend to be faithful over traitors. The traitors, in their defense, always throw somebody else's name out there. Maybe not always. I don't want to say always, because I don't, like, I'm not an encyclopedia of every traitor's interaction ever, but that feels true to me. Like, even when I think of like Dan, it feels like he threw somebody's name out there. Like, people, like traitors in their defense, try to get somebody else's name out there, where it feels like a lot of the time the faithful are like, look, this doesn't make sense. I mean, Sierra did throw Brittany's name out, but only because Brittany accused her. Sierra then brings up Jeremy mentioning Danielle's name, and Danielle says there's no reason she would kill the people who were killed. She voted for Rob twice. Like, she kind of does a very faithful, in that defense that I was like describing that faithful do, she kind of does something similar, where she's like, look, it wouldn't make sense. She doesn't really throw the name back on anybody else in a way that I was smart, because I think that was smart, because that kind of throwing a name back out there does tend to make you look guilty. Anyways, the coffin theory comes up because they think that she was very like loud and boisterous in the way she got into the coffin. Ivar argues that the two traitors they banished could convince a traitor to get into the coffin. It's really, at this point, the main thing they have against her is the coffin theory. At this point, I think they just want to close that theory, which is fair, which again is another reason why would you be a traitor and put yourself in the coffin. The votes in order: Dylan votes for Sierra, Carolyn votes for Sierra, Sam votes for Sierra, Ivar votes for Sierra, Dolores votes for Sierra, Danielle votes for Sierra, she's banished, Gabby votes for Sierra, Tom votes for Sierra, Brittany votes for Sierra, Sierra voted Brittany. So it was unanimous except for Sierra, because she didn't vote for herself. Sierra reveals she's a faithful. Dylan is upset after this. He doesn't like voting with the group. He doesn't like going with the popular vote, as he said, which is funny. He's like, guys, we don't need to go with the group. Like, we are the group. Oh, he's so funny. Does not tell Carolyn and Gabby who has the shield. He's like, I don't know who has the shield. He says Sierra does not have the shield, I think, actually. He doesn't say I don't know. He just tells Carolyn and Gabby Sierra didn't have the shield. I'm not saying who has the shield, I think. I don't think he says he doesn't know. I think he's saying that he's not telling, but he does say that Sierra does not have the shield. Dylan, Ivar, and Sam are strategizing in the wine cellar. They think one of them will be gone in the morning, because there's got to be a woman who's a traitor, likely two women traitors, and two female traitors. It feels weird to say female traitors, but female's an adjective, so it's not like I'm calling them females. I'm just saying female because, anyways, two women have to be traitor. Like, there has to be at least one woman who's a traitor, and they think there are two. And so they think that one of them is going to die, which is smart, because if you're a traitor and the women are up in the air, you want to keep as many women there so they can go after another woman and not you. Anyways, Carolyn and Danielle are talking right outside of the wine cellar, and then Dylan comes out, and it's a little bit like suspicious, and he's beginning to suspect Danielle. Oh, I think I said that earlier. Now he's like starting to suspect Danielle. He's always trusted her, but like some of the things are starting to be suspicious to him, and I think this like didn't really totally help. In the turret, Danielle tells Carolyn that Sierra had the shield, and she's a little bit skeptical because of what Tom said. Like, imagine, I feel so bad for Danielle. I mean, it's kind of like she did it to herself. I still blame Boston Rob, but whatever. But like, how badly do you have to mess up your relationship with your fellow traitor that they're believing Tom Sandoval, the fool of the season, over you? So unserious. She's a little skeptical because of what Tom said, but then Alan comes in and tells them that they could either murder or they can recruit. Danielle wants to recruit, Carolyn wants to murder. Carolyn is still hesitant about her dynamic with Danielle, and she doesn't want to bring somebody else in. They've had a hard enough time getting on each other, getting on the same page. If they recruit, they want to recruit a woman, so there could be another woman to fall before them. And the women they're between are Gabby and Brittany, because they don't think Dolores would ever be a traitor. Carolyn would want to recruit Gabby. Danielle would want to recruit Brittany, so it just doesn't seem like they're going to agree. That's where it ends. I really hope, because Danielle wants to recruit and Carolyn doesn't. I kind of hope that she concedes to recruiting Gabby. But I don't know. I feel like they're going to murder somebody. I don't feel like they're going to recruit Gabby. But it would be really interesting if they do recruit Gabby. Then every season so far of the US version, well, I don't know, I say the US version. The UK version doesn't have celebrities, I don't think. I think it's like regular civilians. It's not reality TV stars. But like every season so far, a Bachelor person will have been recruited. I mean, Pilot Pete didn't accept, but they attempted to recruit him. So that would be interesting. Anyways, that's where we wrap up for the Traitors. Okay, so I'm recording this a few hours after the last part you listened to, so sorry if the audio changed. I didn't move my microphone, so hopefully it didn't. But anyways, now I'm gonna talk about Yellowjackets. As I said at the beginning, I'm going to just share like my thoughts based off of the 2 episodes. I'm gonna kind of dive into like character by character-ish, who like and dive into like specific scenes for my deep dive that I will be doing when the season's over. I'll do like a scene by scene recap and go more in depth on like the plot. For my like weekly like mini recap of the episodes, I'm just gonna kind of share my thoughts on like what happened and like the implications. And anyways, I'm just kind of gonna ramble a little bit about Yellowjackets. So the first thing I want to talk about with Yellowjackets season 3 episodes 1 and 2, I didn't love that we picked up in the summer because they said spring, but it's like literally the whole spring has passed because it's on the summer solstice, so we're going into summer. We completely skipped like spring itself and the end of winter. I would have liked at least like a little bit of like winter. That's just my opinion. There are theories I've seen of people saying they think everything's like they're hallucinating everything and it's still winter. I saw that theory. I don't know if I'd love that. Anyways, I'm not going to jump into the theories, but I like that when we pick up, though, I will say, I really like that they have a Van kind of do a storytelling type thing in a way to explain to us what happened in the time that passed, because it's kind of like exposition, but in a way that doesn't feel like super clunky or weird. Like, you know, when you're watching a show and they like say something as if they wouldn't know. This is like they all know, but they're talking about it in like a mythologizing way, like trying to make sense of their time in the wilderness in a way that makes sense for the plot and also provides context for the viewers in a way that I really like. And I really like that intercut with like Shauna and writing in her journal, because that was obviously a big thing in season 1 that I feel like wasn't as big of a thing in season 2. And it's really like I really liked her saying, we hear Shauna saying that they're talking about miracles and sacrifices, and then it pans to Van talking about miracles and sacrifices, and we kind of get an insight into how Shauna is transcribing, how she's interpreting things, her perspective, and how it's different. Shauna was really, really relatable to me. Like, I completely understand. I understand all perspectives because I understand them wanting to try to find a purpose and, like, you know, all of that. But I also understand Shauna's very real, like, this isn't, like, fun. Why are we having fun? The rest of them are, like, you know, like, I don't know. There's validity in all their experiences. Obviously, it's a very traumatic situation to go through, and everybody's reaction makes sense in their own way. But I really liked that as like a mechanic, them explaining it to us. But like, again, we skipped all of the spring because it's the summer solstice, which, by the way, is my birthday. Not always and every year, but my birthday is very often on the summer solstice. So I consider the summer solstice my birthday, even when it's not my birthday. We find out in the present timeline at Natalie's funeral that she was cremated. I don't know why that felt important to me. I feel like fire is going to be a big thing this season. Like, even when we see, there are moments where we see Van kind of looking at candles, Taissa looking at candles. I really think fire is like a big thing that I'm like paying attention to this season in terms of like imagery. But I really like that kind of like introduction. The episode opened with, I know I'm not going scene by scene, but it opened with like a chase scene that we'd seen in the previews. And I figured that was not going to be like, they're actually hunting Mari. So I kind of liked it because it opened up with like the intensity of their feelings, where Shauna like bites Mari's hand, and it's very much, they're playing a game, they're trying to have fun, but the reality of the situation is still very present. And it's really interesting to see that like very clear in Shauna's reactions and emotions to things. The rest of them are kind of trying to make sense like it's really interesting. And it's also really interesting to me that I think a big thing they're setting up this season is like a bit of a rivalry between Shauna and Natalie in terms of like who wants power, because it feels like in different ways they have a somewhat realistic view, like similar view on the situation. The Natalie Lottie conflict made more sense to me because it felt like Lottie is very much trying to be like, everything here has a purpose. We're connecting with it. Like there's a very spiritual way that Lottie leads the group, where Shauna is very much like, this sucks. We're in a shitty situation. And Natalie feels maybe a little bit more in between. She's more like willing to, like, she asks Shauna at some point if she's gonna like be in the audience. Van worked really hard. Like I think Natalie's kind of like an in-between where she's trying to balance everybody's perspectives, but also very much like not wanting to get involved with the Mari Shauna beef. It's very interesting the way they each, like the role they each play in terms of power and how they wield power and stuff like that. But that's a very interesting rivalry that I feel like they're setting up, because I don't feel like their perspectives of the situation are too at odds. Like the Lottie Natalie conflict from season 2 made a lot of sense because Lottie was like trying to be spiritual in a way that Natalie wasn't connecting to. I think honestly the main tension they're going to have is that Shauna wants power, and I don't think Natalie's going to fight enough to keep it. That's my perspective. I love the amount of Callie we got in the first 2 episodes. I really liked that there's a lot of focus on Callie individually, and then also within the dynamic of like her interacting with the other survivors in a way that I really liked. I've seen in interviews that they said, a lot of the adults said that a lot of the actors from the adult timeline said that a lot of their scenes this season were together. And I really like that. I think that's when the adult timeline thrives, is when they're all kind of together in a really interesting way. And I really like that whatever connection they have, that the past is coming up with the cassette tape that Callie gets, I really like that Callie's involved. Like it feels very Pretty Little Liars Original Sin in a way, where it's like the sins of like generational trauma in a way that I'm really excited to see portrayed on the show, because Callie really is like, none of the rest of them have children. So she is like in a very unique, and also because, well, actually that's not true. Oh my God. Thaisa has a son. So sorry to Sammy. I forgot about Sammy. It's not like she really remembers him either. Oh my God. I'm so sorry to Sammy. But I think, yes, Sammy's there and there's such a difference in Callie's role and everything, because she is Shauna and Jeff's daughter. You know, like that is so important. So like her relationship with Jeff obviously was so crucial, even like in the wilderness, when they got back, like all of that is so important. So Callie being a manifestation of that, like she is such a crucial character. Lottie takes such an interest in Callie. Like I really liked the focus on Callie. I liked when she hears them like gossiping about her, and then she orders like the entrails to throw on the girls' food. Like and the way that Shauna was so proud of her, I really liked the focus on Callie, and I'm excited to see more of her. I think she's a really interesting character. And I also just really like the dynamic of everything being out in the open. I don't know. I really like that. I'm really excited to see how it goes. When Lottie came to Shauna and Jeff's house, and then I love that Shauna called Misty to help babysit Lottie. I love that whole dynamic. I loved the way Callie was able to, in a very Shauna way, like you can see that she is her mother's daughter, pick apart, like pinpoint their weak spots in order to like manipulate them, and like in a way that I really liked. I didn't love Callie's character in season 1. I've never disliked her, but I wasn't particularly interested in any of her storylines. And this season, I'm really excited to see where Callie goes. And I'm really happy about that, because I like the actress and I think she's such an interesting character. I just haven't really it hasn't piqued my interest a ton yet. And this season, like the first 2 episodes really got me interested in the role Callie's going to play in everything. Walter is so sweet. Like Walter this season, I liked him last season, but this season, the way that he is holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity, I'm just kidding. But you know he does, like for sure. They're musical theater people. But the way he holds space I was thinking about this the other day. Sorry, a quick tangent. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, it's so sad that Wicked, the musical, had it come out when they were in the wilderness because like that would have been such a like loathing. Imagine them singing that in the teen timeline. Anyways, like so much could be put in the context of Wicked if you think about it. They weren't born wicked. They had wickedness thrust upon them. Like that's so relatable to them. Sorry. But the way Walter really holds space for Misty's grief was really, really beautiful to me. I really liked it. I know obviously he's like, that relationship is sad to me because he wants to be there for Misty in a way that she tries to be there for others. And I don't know, the whole thing, it makes me, it really hits me in my feelings because I don't know. It's sweet. I feel like there's more to Walter. I will say I particularly am like, I'm not too worried about anybody dying because I don't really, like at this point I know people are going to die. I'm worried about people dying in the, like depending on how they die. There are adults that I really would not want to die. Like I have to be honest, I would not care if Van died. I really wouldn't. I'm sorry. I wouldn't care if Van died. Maybe it's because I know Van has cancer, so I'm like, just kill Van. With Peace and Love, the actress is phenomenal. I have nothing against Van. I just like, I'm more attached to like, even as much as I would be devastated to see Melanie Lynskey leave the show, adult Shauna, like I think the character I really don't want to die is Misty. Like adult Misty. If adult Shauna dies, I think I'd be sad too because I think she's so important narratively. But I really think Misty I would miss out on. And even Walter. Like if they kill Jeff off, if they kill Ty or Van, even if they kill adult Lottie, as much as I love Lottie and she's my favorite, if Lottie dies in the adult timeline, I can live with that. I think it's really hard for me to part ways with the adults that we met in season 1, I think. Except Taissa. Like, I feel bad because she's such an important character, but adult Taissa, I have such a hard time connecting with her. I really think they did her dirty in season 2. We saw so little of her, and even now, like, the Simone Sammy stuff is just kind of glazed over. I feel like Ty's main focus is going to be other Ty in a way that I just, like, I don't love. Anyways, I'm jumping all over the place, but that's the point of this episode. Misty not being at Natalie's funeral, like, really made me sad. Misty grieving Natalie was so powerful to me, and I really liked us seeing them in the young timeline interact in a way that like I don't know, when you know the outcome, it makes it that much more powerful, like the moments they connect as teens. I saw this really beautifully written post where somebody was explaining Misty's role in the hunt, like when they started hunting Natalie, and the way that Misty like stayed in the back and only stepped forward when Javi fell through the ice to kind of tell Natalie like, don't, if not, the others will get you. And she didn't say we, she said the others. Like, she separated herself from those hunting Natalie. I think there's a very interesting relationship Misty has with Natalie. I think Misty is such an interesting character because I think she wants to be loyal to people, but she also will be loyal to people to the extent that they will be loyal to her. But it's also interesting because in the adult timeline, she's very much like, even when they're not loyal to her, she tries to be loyal to them. So I don't know. Misty is such an interesting character. I think she just does what she needs to do. Like, I think Misty will just do what she needs to do to be validated, to like be in. And I think they really mess up with Misty by not letting her in. Like, there's a point in episode 1 where like Natalie, Ty, Van, and Jen are like meeting. Jen has been trained by Natalie so she can hunt as well. And Misty like tries to pop in and they're like, you can sit this one out. Natalie later, when they're looking for Mari, because Mari leaves. Sorry, I'm literally not going plot point by plot point. I'm all over the place. But like, Mari's gone at some point. They're looking for Mari. And this is really like my deep dives. I aim to explain what happened so you can like follow it even if you're not watching the show. These episodes, I'm just going to talk about it as if you've also seen it. So I'm just like debriefing my thoughts. Hope that makes sense. Anyways, the deep dive will be out when the season's out. Like the whole season's done. But anyways, at some point, Misty and Nat are looking for Mari, and Natalie tries to act like she doesn't know where Coach is, even though it's obvious she knows where Coach is. And because she's not giving Misty this, it's also hard though, because Misty's tricky. Misty would use that against you later. You know what I mean? Misty's a really, really dangerous person to share information with, but also to withhold information from. So I don't know. I think I would just keep her clued in to the best of my ability, or I'd be a better liar. I don't know. But Misty's just a really interesting character because it's like, what? At the end of the day, she wants to feel included. She wants to be liked, but it's like also to like what extent? I don't know. Sorry. Anyways. Oh, also at Natalie's funeral, it was like very Catholic. I don't know if it was, but it made me think of the fact that they asked the cast what they think their middle names are. And Sophie Thatcher said that Natalie's middle name is something Catholic. So I always think of her as Nat, something Catholic Scatorcio. It felt very like, Van is very blunt, like at the wake about like, you can just say we ate each other. Like she's very, like, Van is a very interesting character to me. I don't know how I feel about Van yet. I gotta be honest. Also, Shauna like sees somebody at the bar. I think it's meant to be implied, whoever the blonde person is, who I think it's probably going to be adult Melissa, but I don't want it to be adult Melissa. Like, no hate to Melissa. I really just don't want it to be adult Melissa, just because I think there's only one survivor left, and I really want it to be Akilah. Like, it's probably not going to be Akilah, but it's just like, the rest of them could die. Like, I would like an adult Mari too, just because I like Mari. But I would like, honestly, in the teen timeline, I was prepared for all of them to die. But I think whenever they kill Akilah, I think that I will like sob. Like, I love her so much. I don't want her to die. Like, I don't want her to die. And I know she probably does. And I just hope it's like not brutal, but it probably will be. Like, I'm already tearing up thinking about Akilah dying. Like, it makes me sick to my stomach. Like, she's raising like birds and the livestock, and like, why am I gonna cry? She's so sweet. I love her. I love her. When she thought she had that little rat, but it was just like she was hallucinating because he had died, I'm gonna cry. I love her. Anyways, the scene of Misty going through Natalie's storage unit was really, really beautiful to me and sad. And I love Misty like wearing the jacket and going to the bar and trying to like embody Natalie and feel connected to Natalie in that way. I think that's a very real thing. You want to feel as close to the person as you can. It's all really, oh God, why am I tearing up? I started thinking about Akilah, and then I started thinking about Natalie being dead, and now like I'm just like literally about to cry. They're doing a special ceremony for the solstice, and like Lottie wanted something special made for Shauna because one of the people they're honoring at the ceremony is Shauna's son. And Melissa destroys it. Like, this was in episode 1. There's definitely, like, beginning to be, like, Melissa. What's so funny to me is going into the first 2 episodes, I was like, people are joking that they think Melissa and Shauna are going to be a thing based on the previews. And then they were, and it cracked me up just because it was, like, such a crack ship. I think is what, I don't know if that's an offensive term, but, like such a, like, out there, like, ship that people were, like, completely joking about, and then it became something, and it was funny. Anyways, you know what I really find interesting about the whole them having a leader thing is I feel like no matter who the leader is, there's always some kind of issue with somebody being the leader. That made no sense. But like when Lottie was kind of like their leader, the people who didn't really buy into like the supernatural stuff had a problem with it. Now that Natalie's the leader, Shauna has an issue with Natalie being the leader because she wants power, and also Ty has some issues with the way Natalie handles things. Like Ty thinks that Natalie should talk to Mari and Shauna about their beef. Like they're fighting, and she thinks that they should talk about it. And that obviously the Mari-Shauna thing kind of explodes at dinner because the people who lost the like game they were playing at the beginning are like their servants, and Shauna spits in Mari's soup, and then Mari gets upset. Shauna like presses her head into the soup on the ground. It's like a whole thing, and then Mari runs away. But before that, it's interesting because Ty's like, you should talk to them, and Natalie's like, it's just dumb girl shit. We have life and death to deal with. And then Ty's like, maybe out here it's all life or death. Don't forget what happened to Jackie. And it's just interesting to me because it's like, why does Natalie by herself have to make, like, if Ty has a problem with Shauna and Mari, can't she just take it upon herself to be like, hey guys, you got, like, why there's so much. And I don't know, I was never on a sports team, so maybe this is something that feels very inherent to teams, but it's like, I don't understand why there's not more, like, there's not more individually making decisions. And like, why does Ty think that Natalie needs to do that? If that she feels like it's an issue couldn't she just be like, hey guys, you guys should work it out? Like, I get it, she's their leader, but it's like, also like, what does that have to mean? You guys are like, I don't know, there's like a weird, and I know obviously there's like cultish themes, but it's like, why does one person have to make all the decisions? If you think there's a problem with that, why can't you just handle it? Like, why does Natalie have to be the one to sit them down? You're all peers. Like, I think if one of you was an adult, it wouldn't be as weird, but it's like you're all peers. I don't know. So we see Coach Ben too find like an underground tunnel thing with like hot chocolate and like storage things. I see a lot of people theorizing that like none of this is real and it's all in his head. And like the thing is, I don't think so. I think that it was established very early on that they had a cabin. Like, I feel like if that's not real, stuff underground and like all this survival stuff, I feel like that kind of, I mean, maybe not, because at this point they're losing touch with reality in a way they didn't. That wasn't established in season 1, you know? But it's like, I feel like there's a level of realism to the show in that like there was a cabin. I feel like if all of this is in Ben's head, then it would like call into question. It's like, because it's not impossible that he would find like some kind of survivalist thing. There was some guy who lived in a cabin in these woods. It's like not purely remote in a way where it would be impossible that there's survivalist type supplies underground. It makes sense to me. So I don't think he's making it up. Not making it up, but I don't think it's in his head. Like, I don't buy into that. The Taissa Van dynamic is really interesting to me. It frustrates me. I understand they only have so much time and there are a lot of characters, but I just feel like we kind of like yada a lot of Ty's storylines. Like last season it was like so much was up in the air and unaddressed, and then at the beginning of this season like it picks up and we find out she impeached herself before she like got sworn in. Sammy, like Simone isn't talking to her. We see her talking to Simone on the phone, trying to get Sammy to talk to her, and Simone says Sammy doesn't want to talk to Taissa. Taissa's like, you're not letting him. I just feel like there's a lot of telling and not showing with Taissa's storyline, but I do find the Van and her dinner, that's like the most impactful scene between them, is they go to dinner together and they dine and dash, and then the waiter chases them. And he has a heart attack because he almost gets hit by a bus. Somebody saves him and then he has a heart attack. Could never be me. If I was in a restaurant and somebody dined and dashed, I would literally like rather they fire me than like chase after them. I'm sorry. Like he cared a lot about his job. R.I.P. He died. An interesting thing about that I noticed upon rewatching is that there is like a moment where it feels like, and the only reason I have this in mind is because Tawny, the actress, said that she thinks you're gonna figure out that you've been watching other Ty a lot more than you think. And there was a moment where I'm just paying very close attention to the way that her face changes, and maybe it's meant to like imply that other Ty is there. I don't know. I feel like other Ty was present. There's a lot of focus too, like there are a lot of candles around at this restaurant that they dine and dash in. And then after Taissa goes back to try to like pay for what they didn't pay for, they realize, like, she finds out that the waiter died, so she runs away and she goes into like a mass, and there's a candle there that she had gotten matches from the restaurant, and then she like put the matches in that candle at this like mass or church or something. And like I just feel like fire is a big thing. I don't think Coach Ben burned down the cabin. I think it was Van or Ty, but I think it was Van for no reason. The thing for me is I don't really like moralize any of them or like think that any of them are evil, but there's an interesting, and obviously they're all losing touch with reality, but like there's an interesting level for me where it's like a lot of Lottie's, like I feel like a lot of people critique Lottie for her like connecting to the wilderness and like all of this, but like I don't feel that same disdain towards Van when I feel like she too like really feeds into the idea of like it and like the wilderness not wanting to be governed. Like it's not just like a Lottie thing, and Van is very much like talking about what it wants and it doesn't want to be governed. Like she says that to Taissa later when Taissa is like complaining to Van about about Natalie not handling the Shauna Mari thing the way that she thinks she should, because she's like, maybe I should like step in, and Van's like, it doesn't want to be governed. Like Van is very much like wants to feed it. Like I do think she buys into it. in a way that I don't feel like she gets critiqued as much by the viewers as Lottie does for buying into it. And it feels a little frustrating to me because it's like Lottie, again, I don't think Van is like evil for this. I don't think any of them are evil. Like, I'm not trying to say that, but it's like Lottie is like, she is unmedicated. There's like at least some reason. Van is like buying into it, again, for probably trauma reasons as well. But it's just like, it's interesting to me that I like what characters I feel like people are more critical on for doing like the same things. Anyways, not to get into the discourse, but that whole scene was really interesting to me. I also just wish we could have more insight into like, I guess maybe that's like not interesting enough. They had to just like tell us, but I would have wanted to see like more of the fallout. Like we couldn't have at least seen like a news broadcast in the background of something about like State Senator Taissa impeaches herself. Like we just saw it, like she briefly mentioned it at the funeral, and it's like that was such a big part of her story in the beginning, and it just kind of like, I don't know, that bothered me a little bit, I will be honest. I really want to talk about Travis and Lottie and that whole thing and her like trying to get him to connect to the wilderness. Again, I see so many people taking issue with that, but like when Van talks about it and what it wants and it not wanting to be governed, nobody gets mad at Van. Anyways, and I don't think I was mad at Lottie about this too. I don't think that she should get Travis high to connect to the wilderness. I don't think that's a good thing she's doing. I'm not going to defend Lottie in this. I think that's very, very, I don't like it at all. I really don't like it. That felt really like an interesting dynamic to me because Lottie very much for the first 2 seasons, especially last season, was very much like seen as like a prophet, like a god. They made her into like a godlike figure because of these visions she was having, which were, some people argue with me, like some people would argue there is a supernatural element, whatever. She's written to like be unmedicated. So that's how I interpret it. I interpret it as like her schizophrenia manifesting itself. Whether that it's supernatural to you, to each their own, but I view it like there is at least a logical reason that you can like point to, you know? It was interesting because Lottie being unmedicated was not something she talked about or that any of them seemed to know. When we see, there's a moment, Travis is high and Lottie's trying to get him to connect to the wilderness. She tries to get him to talk about his grief. And he's like, but what about Shauna? And Lottie reveals that like she tried to get Shauna to talk to her, but she wasn't really budging. And that she said, just because you need a shrink doesn't mean you are shrink. And then Travis is like, you needed a shrink. And she's like, yeah, I saw many. And then she says that she took pills to stop seeing things. And then he's like, when you came out, you started seeing things again. After the second time he gets high, that Lottie like pushes him to get high, and he has a very, very adverse reaction. He does not want to do it again. I think part of it, and I said this in a TikTok, follow me on TikTok, but I think that was really interesting to me because I think that was the first time we saw on camera Lottie telling them in the young timeline that she has a mental health, like there's a mental human explanation for these visions. And it's not maybe some kind of power, some divine it that she's connecting to, but just like some medical issue that she's having, you know? And I think there was no explanation for it from them before. And this kind of like, why a lot of them in the adult timeline like don't buy into it because it's not like, I mean, you know what's interesting though is the main person, I don't know, because there's obviously a lot of context of like they're in the wilderness, they're going to connect to it more, but like even Misty, who like very much bought into Lottie's like connecting to the wilderness. Well, Van really bought into it. Van in the adult timeline very much like they talk about Lottie in the adult timeline like very much like she's crazy. This is not like, they don't connect to the wilderness in the same way they did. And I do think a part of it was like, I think if they had known she was unmedicated, that wouldn't have become as big of a thing maybe. I don't think she withheld it like intentionally. I think she just didn't, like she couldn't make sense of what was going on. And I know people love Laura Lee and like Lottie and Laura Lee's like relationship, but I do think that Laura Lee kind of made Lottie think that she had a power to connect with something that maybe, and again, like Laura Lee didn't know that she was like unmedicated, but it's like, I don't know. Anyways, not to get into my thoughts on season 1 and like that whole thing, but it went on that unnecessary tangent to say, this was the first time that we saw Lottie tell somebody in the teen timeline that the reason she started seeing things was because she was not taking her medication. And I do think part of Travis's wanting to end the whole wilderness thing and not connect to it anymore and not keep getting high is because he's starting to view Lottie differently. I do think that shifted his perspective. And that was particularly interesting to me because Travis, in season 1, when he dies, Natalie's like, he didn't believe in any of this stuff because the symbol is like where he died, like the symbol is in the floor, and she's like, he didn't buy into any of this, like he didn't believe in this. And that was always an interesting thing I had in my mind because we did see him buy into it. So I started thinking after this that maybe there, and I always thought it was Natalie being in denial. I thought he did connect to it, but she was just in denial, and she was like, this doesn't make sense, like somebody killed him because this doesn't make sense. He didn't believe in it. Because we did see him in season 2 believe in it. He did drink Lottie's tea. He did attend like the wilderness, like mindfulness group, whatever you want to call it. Travis did buy into it. He did believe what Lottie was saying to some extent. And so that was always interesting to me. And I think that this was the beginning of a shift where we're going to see him not believe in the wilderness stuff. I think he's going to be much more practical, and so it'll make his death that much more powerful because whatever changed in him that drew him back to this wilderness that he then was trying to connect back to would be like a huge shift. It would be like out of nowhere that for years and years and years, he didn't buy into it. He fully rejected it when they were young. And then something shifted and like in him that he did connect to it as an adult, and then he died because of it. Like I think that makes his death and Natalie's reaction to his death that much more powerful if we do see Travis in the teen timeline reject Lottie and reject the whole wilderness thing. Because to me, I always thought Natalie was just in denial, but maybe that's not it. Maybe it's true that he didn't buy into it at all. By the time they were rescued, he was like, Lottie's crazy. You know what I mean? I thought that was really interesting. I really liked the Lottie-Travis dynamic and the shift I think we're going to see in Travis and maybe with the rest of them. Like maybe this will be like Lottie will no longer be held to a certain standard because they will start to be like, Lottie is not like a prophet, she's ill. Like maybe that shift will happen with the group as well, and there'll be like a less of a pressure on Lottie. And I'm just really interested to see too on like if that does change how, because we know that when Lottie gets back, we saw this at the beginning of season 2, she like doesn't talk and then she's hospitalized and none of them talk to her for like a decade until like like she was like hospitalized for like a while and they all kind of like lost touch with Lottie. Lottie's kind of ostracized from the group in the adult timeline. So I'm really interested to see how the end of their time in the wilderness is and the role that Lottie plays in it. And why she went quiet, like why she didn't talk, why she like internalized everything. I'm just really interested to see Lottie's arc and how maybe the rest of them knowing that Lottie has like an illness will impact the way they treat her and maybe impact the end of her time in the wilderness. I'm just really interested to see how maybe them realizing that Lottie is not some kind of like prophet changes their relationship to her and then changes her role in the group and her how everything happens to her. I'm excited to see how everything happens to all of them, but Lottie is like my favorite character. So I found this really interesting. I really didn't love, and I know like Travis was trying to get somebody else to like take his place because Lottie really wants somebody to connect to the wilderness. I was sad that he was like, I think the wilderness feels more connected to Aquila. That really bothered me. I don't want Aquila. I'm so worried for Aquila. Travis heard like the trees screaming, and we hear that sound again after like the summer solstice ceremony thing. They all hear it, which was interesting to me. Mari runs away and she falls into a pit, and the pit she falls into was a trap that Coach Scott had set. And the Coach Mari interaction is really interesting because he's kind of like holding her hostage, and she's like, if you didn't burn the cabin, like why can't you let me go? And he's like, that won't matter to the mob. I saw what you did to Javi. It's like, yes, they let Javi die. They had saved Javi, he wouldn't have died. They murdered him technically. But it feels a little so far in the wilderness. They have not begun to hunt each other for sport. I do believe that's going to happen. But when Jackie died, they didn't kill her. And when Javi died, yes, they had decided they were going to hunt each other. But it was because they were out of food. At this point in the young timeline, well, and the adult timeline, they haven't hunted each other yet, except for like they tried to. But like in the young timeline, they haven't hunted yet just to kill each other. the only times they've tried to kill somebody is because they needed food. So it feels a little bit like, I get it. He's like, you guys killed Javi, but it's like, you guys ate Jackie. It's like, they didn't kill Jackie and they let the wilderness kill Javi because they needed food. They were like desperate for food. It's a very different context. They're not going to just murder you and kill you, but I get it. Whatever. He's scared of them. Trapping Mari, I don't really think helps your case, but I get that he's hiding from them. I don't know. A lot of people think that like I don't think he's going to do anything to Mari. I don't know. I'm excited to see where that goes. Like, because we know based off of like the stills for the next few weeks that at some point Coach Scott is back with the group. So I'm interested to see on like if they find, I mean, we did see Missy tell Shauna that Natalie knows where Coach Scott is. So I do think Shauna is going to like bring that to light and they're going to wrangle Coach Scott back to the group and get Mari back. But I wonder what's going to happen first. Like, are they going to look for Coach Scott and then find Mari? I don't know. Anyways, I'm excited to see how that plays out. Coach Scott didn't know the cabin burned down and I don't believe him. I think he's lying. Oh, also when he's with Mari in like the underground cave where Javi was hiding for like all that time that he was gone and that he was trying to show Natalie, we see him like off screen talking to somebody. I think he's hallucinating. I fully do not think there's anybody there. We didn't hear anybody speak back to him. And it's not like he has a cell phone. So I think he's just, and I wouldn't think this just on its face if it wasn't for like, I don't think all of those scenes last season where we saw him losing touch with reality were for nothing. I think that was for something. I think that he's fully hallucinating. I don't think he's talking to anybody who's actually there. Okay. I really like the way that they are portraying Shauna and her grief. Each one of them is going through an individual, like they're going through a collective trauma and they're also going through individual traumas that the others aren't going through. And I think Shauna specifically has like been going through a lot of very heavy things with Jackie dying. And then, well, first she was pregnant, then Jackie died, then she gave birth and her son died. Like Shauna in the team timeline went through like hell and back, like genuinely the amount that she's going through. And I like that we see her trying to connect to her son. And I think it's really powerful that the moment we see Melissa and Shauna kiss, it's tied back to her grief. Like she's there looking at her son and Melissa like followed her and Shauna like threatens her because everybody's going through a collective trauma. But I think there's very little, and like as much as I love Lottie, I do think Lottie really, this is something that she doesn't do well. There's very little like respect for Shauna and letting her go through her things individually without like making it a collective thing. Like they were like our baby. There's a lot of like ownership that other people have taken on Shauna's trauma in a way that I don't think is like healthy or like good for her. And I think the fact that Shauna felt so threatened by Melissa, like, encroaching on that privacy because she's like, he's my baby. Because they haven't given him that space. Even, like, Lottie wanted Shauna to have a special crown because they're honoring her baby at the ceremony. It's like there's no space that they're giving Shauna to just hold her grief on her own without them making, like, it's a very individual experience that Shauna's going through to have been pregnant in this environment, give birth, lose the baby. Like, that's a very, very painful thing to go through when you're not stranded in the wilderness. Same with, like, Lottie is going through a very individual thing of, like, being unmedicated. That's a very scary thing to run out of medication cold turkey on top. You know, like each one of them has dealt with, like, different things that are very individual. And while they're going through a collective trauma, I think it's important to just, like, acknowledge the individual things they're going through and not, like, collectivize it. And so I do feel for Shauna a lot in that I don't feel like they're giving her space. And even, like, at the beginning when we see her upset that they're talking about sacrifices and miracles, it's like they're making her trauma, the things that she's going through and the unique ways that it was particularly bad for her, they're making it like it was meant to be. It helped us get through. It was what the wilderness wanted to help us survive in a way that feels very painful, I'm sure, to Shauna, that they're making her losses in some way positive for them. I like that. And I think it's a very powerful moment that's when we see Melissa kiss Shauna in that moment of pain. And I do think Melissa is trying to connect with Shauna. Like she's trying to be like, I see you. Like she's seeing all of Shauna. She wants to be there for all of Shauna. I mean, they're also just horny, but like, I think narratively, I think it's very powerful that that's the moment that Melissa and Shauna kissed. One more thing before I jump into the last thing I want to talk about. So the Van-Ty dynamic, I kind of got on a tangent and I forgot to talk about this. We get some insight into their breakup post-rescue because Ty's like, why can't we be together? And Van's like, I don't know, you like ditched me for respectability and then you married a woman anyway. Like there's a lot of insight that we're getting into like why they broke up. Anyways, I'm all over the place again. Not to repeat myself a million times, but when I do the deep dive, like recap, like talking scene by scene, I'll be more detailed. Right now I'm just kind of like debriefing after every episode is my goal, so I can kind of track my thoughts throughout the season. Anyways, the last thing I want to talk about, because it's like where the episode ends, that and Shauna kissing somebody, kissing Melissa. I don't know why I said somebody. And anyways, so Shauna's at dinner with Jeff for some work thing, and the people are assholes. She goes to the bathroom. And this is why she needed Misty to babysit Lottie. Anyways, I'm literally all over the place. But we see like a phone like ring. Then she returns the phone. But she like, there's obviously something to the phone. That definitely connects to the cassette. It's not just like random. But that I'm really interested about. I don't know. I think we're meant to think that it's adult Melissa. I really don't want it to be. But we'll see. Okay, final thoughts. I'm recording this again Thursday evening. Like literally it's like 7 p.m. The episode drops in like 3 to 5 hours. I don't know. Last time it dropped at like, I don't know when it's supposed to drop. I'm on Pacific time too. So this episode will probably be out right when episode 3 drops or like very soon after. I don't know. I'm going to try to get this episode out in the next few hours, but I am excited to see where Lottie goes. I really hope that there's something. I really want to see Lottie and Nat's dynamic, not just because they're my two favorite characters and I want to see them together in some capacity, but also because I don't think that the writers are stupid, and I don't think all of the stuff from season 1 was like for nothing. Like there was a lot, or season 2, like there was a lot there. When Natalie died, she saw Lottie. I think that's important. I'm excited to see where that pans out. I'm excited to just see where Lottie goes. I'm really excited to see the season pan out. I have a lot of questions, a lot of excitement. I'm really, really liking the adult timeline in a way that I didn't love. Like season 2, I will say the adult timeline I didn't love as much as I loved the adult timeline in season 1. I'm not somebody who hates the adult timeline. I think without the adult timeline, the show doesn't really work. But I will say I was less captivated by the adult timeline in season 2 than I was season 1. And I'm already in season 3, like feeling the same intrigue with the adult timeline that I was in season 1. So I'm excited for this season. 3 is my lucky number. Very excited for this season. Anyways, I think it's just going to keep getting more and more intense. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will hopefully have another episode out in the next few days, like this weekend, about my thoughts on the Traitors episode that is coming out today. Again, I'm recording this Thursday, the 20th. So I'm aiming to record tomorrow or Saturday about the Traitors, and then also the Yellowjackets episode that drops at midnight. So my next episode will be about the Traitors season 3 episode 9 and Yellowjackets season 3 episode 3. And maybe I'll share some of my thoughts on Love is Blind season 8, but like so far Love is Blind season 8 has been a bit of a flop, in my opinion. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry if this episode was all over the place, but I'm really excited to cover Yellowjackets week by week in kind of a more lax way, just sharing my thoughts. And then again, I will be doing the deep dive, like recapping, tracking the plot when the whole season's out. So thanks so much for tuning in. My social media is linked down below. I do share Yellowjackets thoughts on TikTok. If you followed me from there or you listen to this and you care about my thoughts, I post more like brief periodic thoughts there. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. It means a lot. You'll hear from me soon. Have a great week or few days.